Hello, everyone. All right. As we get everybody logged in here, you'll see a survey on your screen. If you can just take a second to fill it out, that'd be great. You can also drop into the chat where you're calling in from, and we'll get started in just a few minutes to allow for some more people to get signed in. While we wait, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Madison Burnett, and I'm a BCBA. I lead our professional development program, and I will be able to support you throughout the webinar tonight. In addition to that role, I work alongside other BCBAs on our clinician-led recruitment team and in an effort to support the recruiting quality professionals. If you are interested in joining our team, please indicate so in the post-webinar survey at the end of this webinar, or you can email us at careers@manhattanpsychologygroup.com. Okay, I see we have a lot of responses.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people have attended before, but there's a considerable amount who are joining us for the first time.
Wow. Am I reading that right? 352?
Yeah, we have a lot of attendees.
Wow.
All right, welcome everybody. I'm going to end the poll now. And all right. Before we begin the webinar, I'd like to tell everybody a little bit about Manhattan Psychology Group. We were established in 2011 and have continued to grow our team consisting of skilled adult and child psychologists, neuropsychologists, behavior analysts, special educators, licensed social workers, and ABA therapists. As a team, we're committed to wraparound care, which includes our wide range of services from our mental health and testing to ABA and educational services. This holistic approach allows us to address various needs and challenges with compassion and care. We provide services to our clients out of our Upper West Side and Long Island City offices in home, school, and clinic-based settings, as well as through telehealth. Our team is committed to serving individuals, couples, and families of all ages in diverse settings. We're also pleased to offer these free monthly webinars for parents and professionals, where we'll continue to learn and foster meaningful connections. Our vision at MPG is to grow a future where individuals and their families feel supported, connected, and empowered. Our mission is to provide multidisciplinary, integrated support for individuals and their families who experience mental health, behavioral, and educational challenges. Now for some housekeeping information about our CEUs. For those who are seeking CEUs for this presentation, you'll need to collect the code words stated and complete the post-webinar quiz and survey. We'll say the code words and post them on the screen, and once we move on, we'll not be able to come back. We will send the post-webinar quiz in the last 10 minutes of the presentation for you to get your CEU. Any polls that are launched during this webinar are not required to get your CEU, but they are encouraged. We'll be leaving this chat open, but please post any questions you might have in the Q&A so that we can make sure that they are seen. Now I'd love to introduce our presenters. Brett DiNovi is a board-certified behavior analyst and the CEO of the largest award-winning behavioral consulting group of its kind on the East Coast of the United States. Brett DiNovi and Associates employs over 600 consultants in more than 300 schools and organizations serving several states and internationally through the use of remote video consultation. Brett is also the best-selling author with his new book, Behavioral Karma. Brett is the co-founder of the B.F. Skinner Institute, which disseminates behavioral science worldwide. He has a unique and distinguished experience of studying with the principles of ABA under the rigorous scrutiny of both Dr. Julia S. Vargas and Dr. E.A. Vargas at the West Virginia University internationally recognized program. For the past 30 years, Brett has used behavior analytic principles to create large-scale change across businesses using the principles of organizational behavior management. Brett has publications in the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis and has been in executive leadership positions across school and residential programs nationwide. Isaac is the Chief Innovation Officer of Brett DiNovi and Associates and the Vice President of the California region. Isaac has been providing services in applied behavior analysis since 1998. He has worked in executive leadership positions in the behavioral health industry for the last 18 years and uses the principles of organizational behavior management to guide the support and growth of organizations. In addition to Isaac's primary role at Brett DiNovi and Associates, he is an invited speaker for state and national conferences, as well as has co-authored articles and chapters, most recently in the textbooks on multiculturalism and applied behavior analysis. Isaac is the co-founder of the Latino Association for Behavior Analysis, as well as the mentorship program called Mentorologist, which also has a dedicated YouTube channel that bears the same name. And now, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Brett and Isaac.
Go ahead, Isaac. You got it.
Awesome. Thank you, Madison. I appreciate the invitation. And thank you, Brett, for having me co-host here and co-present with you. It's always a treat to be able to do that. Let me just cue up the slides. All right. Well, and
as I said, there's a lot of, it's New York, San Diego.
Yes,
This
big
is so cool,
representation.
man. Miami. Thank you, everyone, for hopping on. Appreciate it. Go ahead. Sorry, Isaac.
No problem. No problem. Yeah, as Brett said, thank you everybody for joining us from all over the United States. It's an honor and a pleasure. Today we're going to be going over preventing employee burnout using organizational behavior management. So we're going to dive into the strategies, and we're going to use our real life examples that we utilize on a day-to-day basis with the strategies of OBM to work through burnout issues that we experience, and what we've learned along the way. But before we begin, I wanted to share that in preparing for this presentation, this year I've had a chance to present at different conferences on the topic of 5 laws that we're going to talk about today, the strategy of OBM that we utilize quite a bit in our practice. And I've been talking a lot on the topic of mentorship. So I got the opportunity to be able to talk about utilizing that particular OBM package in relation to burnout. And it's really challenged me. It's burned me out. The topic of, I'm kidding, it hasn't burned me out, but it's challenged me to really dig in and explore this topic as a preparation for this presentation. And what I could share is, in my experience, burnout is very dynamic. It is not something that, in my experience, is solved and then goes away. It comes and goes. So it is a constant challenge, and it's a constant work that we do in terms of understanding variables that lead to burnout, supporting our organization, supporting our staff and employees through burnout, through pre-burnout, and so forth. So today we're going to package, the work that we've done in this area. We're going to go over 10 points that relate to the topic of burnout, and we're excited to present to you today. But before we do that, I want to get to the very important first keyword, which is thrive. So I'll give a couple seconds for you to write it down or remember it, because I'm sure it's going to come up in some post-webinar questionnaire. So the first keyword is thrive. Yes.
When they're done now, I was just going to mention some of those burnout factors or things that I see a lot. I guess I
go for it.
All right. So I just want to mention that Isaac and I, there won't be one thing that we suggest or recommend that we haven't done. So I just want to stress that it's nothing wrong with reading about things and then presenting them. I just want you to know that the two of us would never suggest something unless we've actually done it with a lot of repetition and fluency. So I was curious if you guys come across some of the same things we do. I've noticed in the industry, so I've been in it 35 years, and our organization's been in existence 20 years. We just had our 20th anniversary, and what I've seen is my own burnout as well as others in the field of applied behavior analysis. Quite often, one of the factors is just that there isn't necessarily a concrete result that we produce that is a finite thing that's there. Like just like a construction worker might or a designer or an architect might create a building, and then they can look back at that for years, decades and decades. They can drive by that building and be proud of the work they did. But one of the challenges, I think, with our industry is simply that we don't always have a permanent product because behavior ebbs and flows and can go up and down. And I think that, you know, some of the things Isaac's going to mention say that they make your job more salient, that you're having an impact. And sometimes it's like the graphic feedback and things like that. But a couple of the things I'm just going to say real quick that often happen are high caseloads that are just straining clinicians. I mean, don't get me wrong, like we make plenty of mistakes and we just strive to try to improve on those. But the physical aspect of the job is so demanding, especially if you're dealing with severe behaviors or even just you know, the little guys and gals that don't have any severe behaviors. You're chasing them, and you know it's really difficult. But the third is or the fourth is just in our industry, it's so hard to have face-to-face coaching. So by sometimes you may feel like you're on an island out there, especially if you're in a home program and you're not coming across a bunch of colleagues. So some of these factors, an abundance of documentation requirements in our industry. Often RBTs don't have opportunities for advancement unless they get unless they're going for board certification. And then one of the other things is just sometimes families and teachers that you're consulting with, they have the wrong expectation of what we're going to deliver, you know? So I was just curious, especially the one with, you know, sometimes just not being that motivated. I find myself, if I don't see a product at the end of the day or the end of the week, can that be, do you think, can I ask you, can you type in yes in there if you think that that could contribute to it? Like a construction, type in yes if you think that not having a concrete steady result, like the building, oh, I guess you can't type, right? Oh, you can. Oh, wow, they're coming in quick. Okay. Yeah. All right. So that's just not in my head. I rarely bring that up. And I realize that our industry is different that way. You know, thank you. Permanent products. Yep. Sometimes it's only the data and it's only the testimonial, you know, but let me hand that over to Isaac. Thank you so much for your contribution on that.
Thank you, Brett. Appreciate it. That kind of gets us started on the topic and a little bit warmed up to some of the factors that can lead to burnout, which we'll continue to expand on during this webinar. But first, I want to center us into what is burnout. And burnout, according to the Mayo Clinic, is defined by a state of physical or emotional exhaustion that also involves a sense of reduced accomplishment and a loss of personal identity. And in a really important article that I'll share as bonus material when you get the slides at the end of this, that article that is a really great article in our field about burnout by Critchfield. He talks about and utilizes this definition of burnout. Additionally, Dr. Jimenez Gomez also puts burnout in a really concise way where the work demand exceeds the level of reinforcement. And I really like the way this is put. I'm sure you've been in a situation where the work demand that's being placed on us is exceeding the level of reinforcement, and this can be what leads to burnout and a definition of that. So it kind of puts it in a different perspective, and I really appreciated how Jimenez Gomez put that. So that's what burnout is. So I want to go over and I want to discuss how we use OBM to reduce burnout. We're going to talk about 10 factors, and before that, I want to utilize this OBM package that we utilize quite a bit at BDA that Brett and Dr. Gavoni summarized in their book as the lens of how we could take a look at addressing burnout in the work that we do. And this is going to introduce us to the 5 laws of life and leadership that were summarized in DiNovi and Gavoni's book. In that book, he talks about 5 laws, 5 principles of OBM that are packaged together and can be used to successfully, take a look at factors such as burnout, in addition to other areas that you want to make improvements in. And the first one starts with pinpointing. So pinpointing is really important and kind of the start of, utilizing this lens or this package, which has to do with being specific about what you're trying to address or resolve or understand. The more specific you could be, the better and the easier it's going to be to address it. So we'll talk about how we use pinpointing to address burnout factors, but pinpointing and being specific is where we begin, which is then followed by creating goals. So this is the second law of this package. And, I simply put, and the way I explain it to staff to just be as simple about it as possible, is when you take a look at your pinpoints and you start putting a time frame to it, by when do I want to achieve this and how much do I want of this, you start turning those pinpoints into goals. And that kind of puts you in a direction of accountability, and it starts setting the engines towards progress by using this. That's followed by the really powerful intervention and strategy of self-monitoring and reporting out. And really, this is a strategy when individuals are self-monitoring the work that they're doing related to the goals and the pinpoints, and then reporting it out to an accountability partner or a coach or a mentor or a supervisor. This really gets traction in making progress on the goals that you set out.
If I could
So
mention
this is a really, yeah,
one thing
please.
about that self-monitoring, thanks, sorry, Isaac. But the self-monitoring part's been, that principle's been around for a long time, and it's nothing that we clearly invented, including these 5 principles. We just kind of package them in a way that could be a process and the principles. And if I were to add something, the self-monitoring part and then reporting out your progress to someone who cares, that's like a coach or a supervisor or a family member even, the self-monitoring in itself is so powerful. And what I mean by that is sometimes you'll notice that if you're just recording, it's kind of like, a lot of us use electronic calendars and Google and stuff like that. But I was just wondering, did you guys ever write down your different tasks for the day and for the week? And then it feels so good when you cross it out. Type in yes if you've ever done that. Maybe I'm just old and okay. Yeah, it feels really good when you self-monitor and you're actually getting through concrete things. And the other thing about self-monitoring is that sometimes the act of monitoring your own behavior and recording it changes your behavior in itself. And it's really amazing. I see Isaac doing that a lot. Is also with his own with the folks that he leads, and he'll get into that a little bit more. But when often Isaac will say, if you measure it, you can move it, and you really can. Sometimes just the act of measuring it. Now, the important part, I mean, it might be like, for example, if I was working on a goal with somebody that directly reports to me, and let's say it's in a home setting, and, maybe the best one I can think of is maybe just being on time, and the person really is working on it and they care. They might just text you. You might just ask them in the beginning, just text me, when you get there. And that's all. And then just the act of them having to report it out to you often will make them more on time, and I think Isaac will get further into that, but there's so many examples. Now, the key is that if you're not intermittently checking the results of their self-monitoring, then, and you don't have the next 2 things that Isaac's going to go over, little by little, the self-monitoring can lose its impact. So go ahead, Isaac.
Definitely. So as Brett said, that self-monitoring reporting out is followed by the other 4th important part of this package, which is reciprocal feedback, is being able to give feedback and comment on what's being reported out to you. So that way the person knows, are they on track? Are they not on track? But also the reciprocal part is that it's important for them, for the person that is self-monitoring, to be able to give feedback back to see if the feedback is serving value to them. So that way that partnership strengthens through this reciprocal feedback dynamic. And then the fifth one is pay for performance. So when we talk about pay for performance, yes, it can be money, but it doesn't always have to be money. I know in BDA, there's a strong value that we pay for performance, not for the passage of time. So this is a value that we have, and through many different strategies, we really try to reinforce for, achieving certain outcomes or making progress or trending in the right direction, because those are signs that performance is headed where it should be headed. So this could be in the form of bonuses or compensation or scorecards, things like that. But it could also be other types of reinforcement that one gets. It could be getting PTO. It could be getting different things that we could be creative with to motivate and reinforce those that are performing. So that the lens that we're gonna discuss the topic of burnout is going to be through this lens of the 5 laws of life and leadership. So I wanted to just take the time to unpack this and share that with you before we go into just some considerations when addressing burnout from our perspective.
If I could mention one thing on that, pay for performance, just like Isaac said, a good portion of the time it has nothing to do with money, and when it comes to pay for performance, the challenge is that a lot of other industries actually have better models that reward people for their performance instead of time passing. So even as little things such as being an Amazon delivery person might be a better contingency because they're getting paid for performance, not just time passing. And that's just an example. And it's very difficult to come up with those systems. But when it comes to things that are not money, there are so many things that if someone is self-monitoring and they're becoming independent, after a while, the money isn't quite as important as the natural consequences that pay off your performance. There's so many natural consequences, and some of those things could be just, seeing the kid make progress over time, seeing a staff that you're leading just thank you and send you a text message like, yo, you're the first person who came out and recognized what I was doing. It could be just the natural part of after work. For example, people getting together and they become friends, and that collegial aspect becomes part of the reward of that job. So there are just so many natural contingencies that we should be aware of. So thanks, Isaac.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So again, we're going to take a look at the impact that these 5 OBM principles can have on burnout as the next step. And we're going to go through 10 of these discussion points. The first being to pinpoint and understand the factors that lead to burnout. That's a good place to start. We want to really study and understand within your organization or within those that you supervise or coach, what factors can lead to burnout. In my experience, I've been doing this for 26 years, and burnout is there. And the decisions we make as leaders can increase the probability of burnout, can decrease it, can keep it at bay. So we really hold the cards when it comes to how heavy we press and how much we create that possibility or that probability that our staff will experience burnout. So it starts off by really understanding what are going to be those factors. So to effectively address burnout within an organization, it's essential that we first identify these underlying factors. So I want to direct us to the poll, and I want to ask if you could fill out the poll and write in some of the factors that you've seen that lead to burnout. I'll give a little bit of time.
And then Isaac, once everybody has put in their responses, I can share some of them, or there should be a button that says view responses.
Oh, great. Okay.
Um,
You read my mind. I was trying to figure out what to do with it. So
Yeah.
thank you. I love the participation though. Thank you, everybody. I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of them, but I appreciate you going through the exercise.
This will help us even when we read afterwards, you know?
Yeah. And even in the chat, I see, right. I mean, those are ones that I'm very familiar with. Redundant paperwork, our caseloads, no support, 100%.
Redundancy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I read these factors that can lead to burnout, I think of, the responsibility I have in the position that I hold, which is probably similar to a lot of you, where I have staff that, that work under me, so to speak, and I delegate work, and I have to be very mindful of what that work looks like, and ensure that I consider the burnout aspect of it, which is a big responsibility, and it's a daily thing, and that's one of the things that I really wanted to stress. This is something that isn't a prescription. You put it in place, and burnout goes away. Burnout is a dynamic, ongoing thing that we always have to be aware of. So, thank you again all for participating in the poll. And thank you for those that wrote in the chat. I agree with a lot of those, and I think Madison, do I click share results, or I don't want to click anything?
You can definitely. It'll share what everybody had said. If you also click on that view details, it would just view for you or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll do that.
307 people put feedback. Wow.
Yeah. And
for some
so
reason,
a lot
I'm
of
not seeing view details, but
okay. So just to read through some of them, some people said large
please, thank you.
caseload,
Yeah.
overabundance of cases, lack of support, a lot of unspecified goals. Quite a few people are saying large caseloads and lack of support. Poor boundaries between work and home. Staff shortages. Cancellations, lack of supervision.
Indeed. Well, thank you. And thank you again, everybody, for participating. Those are right on. One of the things that I do in my role is I do a lot of our new hire interviews. So over the last 6 years here at Brett DiNovi and Associates, I've probably done 3,000 interviews. And the lack of support is one of the reasons why I see staff leave for one agency to another agency. So that's something that, I'm very sensitive to, and it's something that, we put a lot of work into making sure that we provide the necessary support to our staff. So that is one of the leading factors that I see that lead to burnout and why people will leave one company for another. Caseload is definitely something that comes up. I know there's different strategies that we put in place, as I'm sure a lot of you, to be aware of the caseload that a BCBA has and what that represents in terms of workload. Is it realistic? Is it not? Can they do the best work possible and so forth? So this is something that we create visibility within our leadership team to understand, how many hours are being assigned to somebody, how many cases do those hours represent? Do they have the ability to hit their productivity goals? But is it also realistic for them to be able to feel like they're doing a good job? And we constantly are making adjustments to make sure that it's not purposely burning somebody out, and if it is, then we address it a different way.
Yep. And to add to that, doing thousands of interviews too over all these years. One of the other common things when I may ask, so why are you considering another opportunity? It's kind of the nice way of saying why are you quitting your other job, like why are you considering other opportunities? And the other common one is that I often hear that they didn't have an opportunity to move up. or there wasn't there weren't clear steps on how to get promotions and everything. So that's something we'll get into a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So the second point we're going to talk is to be able to pinpoint clear expectations and goals. So again, we're working through these 5 laws in relation to burnout. So by setting clear work expectations and goals, it can in and of itself reduce work stress and burnout. And this is one of the things that I experience a lot. And it's something that I'm constantly reminding myself I have to do a better job to make sure that each position within the organization is very well defined. Here, I lead BDA California, and it was a startup for the Brett DiNovi and Associates organization. So essentially, we started from the ground up, and a lot of positions were brand new. There was no precedence for the position. We had to build it. We had to set up a structure. We had to set up the work expectations, what the position looked like. So when I haven't done a good enough job of clearly outlining the roles and responsibilities, the expectations, what the results are going to be, I see that the people in those positions start to experience burnout because either they're putting work and energy where they shouldn't, or they get expected by others to do things that they shouldn't, and it just gets really confusing. But the more specific it is, and the more you could pinpoint the expectations of that position, what results they're aiming for that position, this could help reduce the burnout by just reducing the confusion and all that comes with it.
And especially at the interview stage, if you have some say over the hiring, setting the expectations in the beginning, honestly, you're better off. I know this sounds crazy, but you'll see that you've brought in people that match closer to the expectations when you lay out those expectations. And sometimes when you're interviewing, you may even just be very authentic and genuine about, like 5 reasons you shouldn't work here. You know what I mean? Because you might hit on those things and the person realizes, all right, it's not the best. Hey, it's so much better for them to rule out that it's the right place before you make an offer than them find out 3 months later and it disrupts the clients.
Right. Indeed. One of the processes that we've been able to do very successfully to get a pulse on our employees, is to measure their satisfaction and stress level. So as Brett said earlier, at BDA, we often state, if you can measure it, you can move it. So this motto that we've developed has carried us through some challenging times when, during the pandemic, I remember this is when this was a big rallying cry. We were trying to understand, the turbulence of that time. And if we measured it, we could then move it in the direction that we needed to. So employee satisfaction and stress levels is no different. So for us, and the recommendation is to monitor your employee satisfaction and set up a recurring survey. We do ours weekly and use that information to assess potential burnout or other risk factors. So we, from a scale of 1 to 5, measure the job satisfaction for the individual employee, as well as a satisfaction with their coaching or their support, which, we were talking about how that's one of the leading factors of burnout and why people leave a company. So we monitor this data across the different states, and we monitor it on a weekly basis. And we also put in there if an individual employee needs to talk to somebody on the executive team to please let us know, and then somebody will reach out to them to be able to address whatever is coming up. So it's a way that creates engagement, but that also creates awareness. It's almost like the reciprocal feedback, which, we talked about in that package, where our staff members, our team members can give us feedback on how their experience has been, to be able to assess on a weekly basis, how are people doing, so this has been a really powerful tool.
And to add to that, when Isaac mentioned something, say that could be in a survey of 1 through 5. So the surveys have to be so quick. They got to take less than maybe 2 minutes to do, or else people won't do them. And one of the great things about like a 1 through 5 question on different questions, like, and then you give an example, like 5 means highly satisfied, 1 means not, or something to that nature, is that although it's subjective, what's great about it is when you have a conversation with an employee or someone who may have, let's say that they rated themselves as a 3 being average on a 1 through 5 when it comes to their job satisfaction. Everyone has different definitions of that, but if they said 3, it gives you a starting point to have a little conversation that you wouldn't have otherwise. It's really hard to just go up to an employee and say, so what do you think could be better, or what do you like about the job? But if you can bring it down to a metric like 3 being average, then you can ask the question, what do you think would make it a 4? What would put you above average in satisfaction and lower stress? And so just the types of questions that you ask around that would matter, and it would yield very valuable information. If somebody is a 5 on satisfaction, you might even have a dialogue saying, tell me about it. Tell me about what you love that's making you so inspired in your role. And that helps you figure out what you want to replicate throughout the company.
Yeah, well said. And Danielle, I like your comment of if it's longer than 2 minutes, you're not going to complete it. That's so true. And I'll remember that, because I've made the mistake of, it's so tempting. You have this survey that you're doing, all of a sudden you're going to add another question, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, people are filling it out. So it's so true. It's got to be quick. Number 4 is to set up work-life balance goals with employees. Again, we're kind of at the goal part of those 5 laws. So we oftentimes talk about strategies to create balance. And one of the things that I see as we work to support our staff to grow in their positions is a lot of times the growth creates stress. It creates a lack of capacity, and staff start kind of drowning a little bit. And this is where these 3 strategies that Brett talks quite a bit about, to delegate, automate, and learn when to say no, become really important. And these have to be taught, because a lot of times, when somebody is growing in their position and taking on more responsibility, these are the things that can help relieve them of the workload by, beginning to delegate and taking on somebody else, and using that. The way I explain delegation, and it's taking me many years to come to this relationship with the work and strategy of delegate, is you're providing somebody else the opportunity for growth. If we hoard all of the work responsibilities and all the tasks, and we keep on carrying everything, and things are falling through the cracks, but we don't delegate, then somebody else that is looking at you for the opportunity to also grow in their position, we're denying them the opportunity to do that. So, to me, I've come to my relationship with the word delegation, which I haven't always been good at, is by me giving tasks to others and coaching them through that, is giving them an opportunity for growth. It also provides the relief for me of not having to do a growing number of tasks as I grow. And in a sense, if everybody's growing, the organization's growing. And that's, I say the growth that we've been able to produce in the state that I'm in has been done through mentorship, because as people grow, the organization grows. And that's been the big focus, is trying to continue to mentor people to, keep on growing in their positions, so that way the organization grows. So delegation has been a big, powerful tool. Yeah, Brett.
Unless I'm jumping again, I wanted to add something important about the automate, delegate, say no. Those principles are so important. Now, I know we're all in the field of helping people, and it's really hard to say no at times. But I'm just very honest when I let someone know, like, look, I don't know if you want to use this kind of language. It's just me being honest. Like, I'll say to a person when they might ask for something, for me to do something that I know I don't have the time for, I'd let them know, listen, this would be a total injustice for me to commit to this and then give you a half-ass job. So I want to give you all of me. I want to make sure that when I say yes, that I'm committed to really really delivering and like over delivering and under promising. You know what I mean? Because if you over promise and under deliver, there's nothing worse.
Indeed. So Brett has wanted to briefly talk about some inspirational goals related to work-life balance and the niche.
Yeah, this is brief. I think that what I've learned over so many years, you know, again, many failures, you know, in the 20 years of our organization, 15 years ago, I faced bankruptcy, not with the business, but personally, and just a lot of stuff. And these principles, these 5 principles really helped work me through it. And one of the things that I noticed that that keeps retention high is if you can help someone in the organization, even if what they choose as a goal is not necessarily something within the company that you need. If people can have, if they can figure out their purpose, their highest expression of themselves, the things that they're passionate about, and if you can understand that, and as a coach or an executive coach or a leader, make notes of that, there are ways like these could be goals that are 10 years from now. I frequently ask people, what would you want to do if you didn't have to work? What would you do with your time? So besides, like, you know, being on the island drinking margaritas for a couple of weeks, that could get old. What inspires you? What is your passion? And quite often, there are ways that you can align them with things that might be voluntary, and the organization cannot pay for it because there isn't a return on investment to pay for it. But quite often, people might just acknowledge that they want to try something that's volunteer, but it's like it's something that they love. And even if for 5% of their day, they're chipping away at that large goal, that long-term goal for them, that may not even benefit the organization, it really, really helps with retention, and it shows that you care. So one of the new things on our scorecard that we're putting in there is, you know, what would you want to do 10 years from now? And what we're seeing is, you know, perfect examples are, you know, things that we can create for people within the organization that are people's niches. So some folks enjoy social media. So initially we can't pay them to do it, but if it results in good recruitment and a return on investment, then we can. Some are certified fitness trainers, and they found their niche where they actually can get paid to lead classes, both internally with employees and with learners, right? I mean, just examples. I mean, there are just so many. Some people really love to travel. And speak at conferences. So we try to put them on a track where if they've never done public speaking initially internally, they might be on a little panel discussion within the organization. And then step by step, they're hitting the larger goal. To be a keynote speaker could be someone's long-term aspiration. So I just think that even if there isn't funding for certain things and someone agrees to volunteer to do it and you take an interest in that, it can go a real long way.
Indeed. Thanks, Brett. The 5th point is to provide training, coaching, and support. Again, you know, we talked about how important support is to reduce experiences of burnout and to retain our staff. So in the poll, I wanted to find out by yes or no if you are in a position to train, coach, and or support other employees. Great. I was anticipating that most of you were in a position to train, coach, or support other employees. Few of you are not, which is okay. You know, and this is, again, you know, what I've seen in our industry and in our field, that, you know, as we move in positions of being a supervisor, as we get our BCBAs, we move a step further from the direct treatment, but instead we are more in a coach role to support those that are providing direct treatment. So that relationship is something that's really important. And when it comes to burnout, it could definitely reduce the levels of burnout by providing quality and meaningful support.
Isaac, just double checking. Does this end at 7:20 Eastern time, or like is it a 50-minute or?
Yeah. Yes.
We have a
yes,
full
it's an
hour. Mhm.
hour.
Oh, okay, cool. Go ahead. Sorry.
So, we found that providing coaching and support leads to high satisfaction amongst employees and can lower burnout. Right now in the company, we've been testing out a scanning program. So this is just an example of, what we try to do to really create visibility to this coaching process. So Brett could probably explain a lot better. It was,
Sure.
did you want to explain the scanning program?
Yeah, I'll touch on it real quick.
Sure.
Because our industry, like I was saying earlier, isn't really most of us are paid based on time passing as opposed to your engagement, right? So that can be challenging because in the long run, if there aren't those natural rewards that you're reaching, all you're really doing, sometimes you're not passing the dead man's test. In other words, there's nothing you have to do but show up and put in the time. And that also means in the kind of work that we do, every time you create an opportunity for a learner or someone you're training to respond, you create more work for yourself. So, and we all know that free operant learning occurs with many trials of mistakes and successes. So what's important is that people will need a structure of payment, which is hourly or salary. But then if you can overlay something that rewards them for their performance and engagement on site right there. So in the schools and in primarily now, what we just started in the past year that's been pretty effective is that every single employee in the schools of ours, they could be RBTs, BCBAs, they have an ID badge. And then on the back of their ID badge, there's a QR code. So what we do is we just take a supervisor comes in on site. They have a good reason to, especially if you might have a lot of employees and not know their name. You go up, you grab their ID, you're speaking to them by name, you flip it over, and you're observing certain KPIs or key performance indicators. One of them might just be, look, can they vocally or verbally explain the function of that kid's behavior? Like when you stop in there in the school or in the home, or can they demonstrate that, right? And if they can do it or they can explain it. We scan the back of the ID badge. They get a gift card, right? And then it pulls to their HR file, and then a leader has a whole dashboard of people that are highly engaged. Does that make sense? Because then once they have enough engagements and they've covered enough key performance indicators, they've either been able to explain it or they've demonstrated it. Demonstrating's better. That's a good way that you can increase someone's pay. You could provide opportunities for advancement and promotions. It's just one of the ways.
Yeah, exactly. So that's our scanning program to make that support and coaching a lot more visible. The 6th point is to manage workload, capacity, and resources. That was a hot topic in terms of, what a lot of us feel leads to burnout. So the next poll question is, are there considerations that you've made when managing your employees' workload? Thank you again all for sharing. And I'm sure I'll be able to get a list of all the awesome contributions. I know for me, it's been really creating a database to have all of our supervisors, the cases that they have, how many hours are assigned to each case, and being able to add all of that in relation to what their expectation is and just make sure that it's right-sized. We also take a look at the regions that the clients are to make sure that our supervisors aren't traveling all over the place, which is causing unneeded stress and so forth. So we create visibility around that to be able to monitor it. So that way we could have that be more objective and be able to work with our supervisors a lot easier. But, again, if you can measure it, you can move it. So we create a lot of visibility with those things to be able to make sure that we're hitting the spot and having better conversations with our supervisors. Thank you. And we had 200 responses, which is amazing.
Yeah, these data could be really useful too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So we'll be able to review those afterwards, but I appreciate the contributions. So we know that unrealistic. Yes,
I am seeing feedback that the audience does like if I add comments. So I'll add comments as you speak, Isaac.
Of course. Appreciate that. So unrealistic caseloads and work expectations is a quick way to create burnout. So it's critical to monitor the capacity of our employees and make adjustments to our productivity expectations based off that. So one of the things that we do quite a bit is as people move into different positions, we take a look at the added responsibilities that they're going to have and then make adjustments to their productivity goals. So that way they have the space to be able to do the other leadership stuff and the other responsibilities that they're doing. So we're constantly moving around our goals for each staff member to make sure that we're managing the capacity and resources. Brett, feel free to jump in whenever you want. So I know one aspect is we assess will versus skill if expectations are not met. And a really great tool to use is the performance diagnostic checklist. I encourage you all to you could find it on Google and you could pull it up, and it's just a great assessment to really assess our side of the street. Have we done everything we needed to support this person, and just to get a better assessment on will versus skill.
Yeah, and to add to that, that's so important to figure out, is it antecedents or consequences that are impacting that person's behavior? And not to dwell so much on the self-monitoring part, but when it comes to the self-monitoring and report out, let's just go back to the example of the person who reports to you just texting you and updating you on something. That helps you determine also whether there's a will or skill issue, right? So I'll just give you an example. With my stepson some years ago, to get him to do chores, he would have to text me once a day, that he knocked out the chores, right? And what I realized is that if he didn't text me, most likely it didn't get done, and he just didn't care. It was a motivation issue because he knew how to do the chores. He already previously demonstrated them. So what I'm suggesting is that the self-monitoring, once people understand how to do something and they have the skills and the repertoire, if they're not self-monitoring and reporting it out as you agreed and they agree to do, then maybe it's a motivation issue and they just don't care. And that helps you understand whether it's a reinforcement issue or a training issue.
Indeed. And thank you to Andrew in the chat. I saw that he put a link to the PDC for you to download. So thank you, Andrew. Number 7, and I'm going to go a little bit more quickly because I know we're coming close to our time, is to encourage self-care and stress management. If employees are expressing burnout due to mental health or other reasons, we want to take that communication seriously and provide support. So the support that can be provided, and I know even in this section, I consulted with our HR, Fiorella, because at this point we want to take that seriously. We want to be able to talk through the issues and have an assessment of the level of severity. We want to be able to offer state and federal supports to be able to support each individual employee. We want to ask how we can help them through their crisis, if that's what's going on, to be able to pinpoint how to best support them, and also be able to determine the kind of job modification that may be needed to support them. So this is something that we do have to take seriously and be able to provide the necessary supports. Number 8 is we want to monitor and address early signs of burnout. So there is a poll, and for the purposes of time, if you want to, answer the poll, please do. Which the question is, what are the early signs of burnout that you've seen? I'll share some of the ones that come up here as you also answer. We'll do this together. Is one of those is quiet quitting, which is the lack of responsiveness, calling out frequently, or other patterns of behavior that can affect attendance. These could be signs that they're engaged in what has been very popularly labeled quiet quitting. Also, if staff start responding unprofessionally, these could be signs that there could be burnout. So, pay attention to those. Decreased quality of work, missing deadlines and such. So those are some of the examples that I've seen, and I'm sure, with the close to 200 responses that you're submitting in the poll, you've seen some really good ones as well. Number 9, I'll share that it's to empower autonomy and decision-making when possible. Micromanaging is something that I've seen can also lead to burnout. So once an employee has demonstrated consistent performance, allow for autonomy and trust their decision-making. I'll share something that Brett has coached me, and he's supervised me in this way, which has been genius, is instead of dictating everything that I need to do, he puts guardrails and allows for a space for me to engage in my own decision making, which to me has been genius, and it's been something that I've really tried to emulate. Where if you have a really good performer, put up guardrails and allow them to have some autonomy in their decision making. If there's somebody that is able to handle that, and you'll find that the discretionary effort, the creative performance that you get is going to be magnified by doing that, not constraining them with they have to act this way and micromanage them all the way through, which has been my experience. So minimize micromanaging of your top performers to prevent burnout. And the 10th one is,
I just wanted to mention one thing I'll throw in the chat as as a thank you and gratitude for you guys like caring enough to even be on this. If you want, I'm just going to throw it in the chat right here. If we have 20 of our books that are laying around, the 5 laws. If you're interested, we'll mail you a free one. Just shoot an email. I put it in the chat. Shoot an email over to Kate. And I know we have at least 20 of them. If you shoot an email, that way you can send your address. We'll mail it over to you because you might find some use in it. If not, it's okay too.
Thank you, Brett. Number 10 is monitor the effectiveness of your self-management strategy. So teach your employees to utilize the 5 laws as a self-management tool to empower them to self-manage their own work and increase their autonomy. So, we kind of go full circle. And, I've recently, for a couple of the states that I support, I gave a presentation on the 5 laws, and I went through how to utilize the 5 laws in self-managing their position, but also on how to use it to coach their staff by being able to pinpoint goal set, self-monitor, report out, reciprocal feedback, and pay for performance. So we utilize this to also, monitor the effectiveness of the strategies that we put in place. And that has been highly effective. I know we only have a few seconds, Brett.
No, it's okay.
You were giving examples throughout. So
yeah, I gave some of those examples. I wonder, do you think for the last minute, we should just take a couple questions? I saw some hands raised, or should we? It's up to you guys.
Indeed. I know there's probably some questions.
So we have advertised your webinar for another 10 minutes. So if you guys wanted to answer questions in the last 10 minutes, we do have a few of them in the Q&A.
Oh, okay. How do we figure out where?
I see. Okay.
Do you think you would want to read off the ones that you'd like us to respond to? Because I'm not sure how to scroll through.
Yeah, I definitely can if you'd like.
Yeah, and then I'm happy to. I love the organic Q&A,
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one is, From Sarah. She says, I'm an office manager with an intern getting his master's, but has a desire to work in OBM upon graduation. Unfortunately, here in Pennsylvania, we don't seem to have OBM. Do you have any suggestions for me to help him?
One of the things I would suggest initially is, I'm not sure what the role that you're currently in, but if you're able to even volunteer a little bit in the human resources area, if the organization is willing, as a good start, then you're accessing the opportunity to implement performance management or organizational behavior management. I'll be honest with you, the term OBM isn't that recognized of a field, but performance management and change management is really important. So if you're able to just so also I would look back at some of the Aubrey Daniels work, and you'll see that you can embed OBM throughout what you're doing. But if you're able to do a little bit of supporting human resources, you'll find all these opportunities.
Yeah. I know for me, real quick, I did research for my graduate studies in OBM, but my graduate program was not an OBM program. So because of my passion and interest in OBM, I found ways of practicing OBM in my leadership roles. So within the field of ABA, I would utilize OBM and, essentially use that to guide my leadership, and found my way in utilizing those skills within the positions that I had. So.
Fantastic. Okay, the second one is from Jennifer. She says, when doing surveys, how can you ensure honesty? I find that our employees say what we want to hear and not what we need to hear.
Yeah, that we've also come across that a bit. Well, I think that if they know that they may get a phone call, especially if they ask for it, we have a little button, like you click it and then someone will get back to you within a certain amount of time. That's one of the leaders in the organization. I think sometimes by knowing that there'll be a dialogue, people might be more likely to be honest about it. But you're right. And I mean, there are ways to also do anonymous surveys, but then you got the IP address thing. But it's really about a culture of safety where when people do bring up concerns, that there's no response that's like retaliation in any way,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and that kind of leads into the next question, or you might have just answered it with your response. From Kate, it says, on your employee satisfaction survey, do you have staff identify themselves or are they anonymous?
There, and Isaac, feel free to chime in. Most of them they're identified by their email, or they put their name in, and that way we know how to reach out to them. But I know in the past we've done anonymous ones, but you're right, that feedback can be brutal.
Right. Yeah, and those have been some of the pros and cons that I've experienced in doing both the anonymous surveys and those that aren't anonymous. Is, you might run the risk of, if it's not anonymous, they're just telling you what you want to hear. But the anonymous ones, it might unleash more feedback, but then you don't know how to address it. You don't know where it's coming from, and it kind of creates a little bit of chaos type of thing, although you're getting that information. So, I know for us, we utilize both depending on what questions we have and what information we want to learn. And then we also get feedback from our staff. If our staff are wanting it to be more anonymous, we consider that, versus it being not anonymous. So, I think we do it in several different ways.
All right. How would you balance delegation if there aren't any appropriate parties to delegate to?
Yeah. So I guess if there are not any employees, that could be challenging, and then you're using probably more automation. But if there are very few employees to delegate to, wow, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I know. So again, I don't know the type of business that this person is in, or what the setup is, because I think if there isn't somebody that's ready to be delegated to me, I see that as an opportunity for coaching to get them ready to then support you in delegating to them. But I also know in my experience when I was building California, it was me at first, and then I was taking on all the work. When the work grows, it creates an opportunity to then be able to hire somebody. If you're part of a business plan that is aimed at growing a business. So the fact of taking on more work and growing my position, even if I was just the only one, it gave me the opportunity to then, look to hire somebody to support and delegate to. And again, the act of that helped grow the organization because it meant that more tasks on me meant more growth for the organization. And that was part of what gave me the indication that I needed to hire somebody to help me out, or else things get stuck. Growth gets stuck if you're at capacity. Not only does growth not happen, but then that's where burnout happens, and then things just stop. So the act of delegation is important if you're looking to grow something. In my experience.
Yeah, let me just say, this is a really good question I just saw by Zahava Friedman. It says, how do you encourage some of the strongest people to take on leadership challenges? My suggestion on that is that, yeah, you'd be surprised sometimes some of the best leaders may just, whatever they've gone through, they don't want to take on additional challenges or additional people that they lead. And what I've found is that as long as they're in good faith attempting and to use evidence-based procedures and doing the right thing, what you want to do is let them know that it's okay to fail. In other words, you'll see more people take on opportunities and push the envelope if as a leader you let them know that you're, like I said earlier, the more at bats and swings that you have, the more mistakes you may make. But as long as they know that you're coming from a place of errorless learning, and if we truly practice what we preach with applied behavior analysis, we're gonna let that leader know, hey, look, I think you're ready for this. If you make mistakes, it's okay. It's on me. Like, the mistake is on me as the leader, because this is an errorless learning process. I've noticed that really does help people take accountability and want to move into roles because they feel safer.
Okay, the next one on here is, what is the best course of action if an employee demonstrates a will issue or expresses an unwillingness to change?
Cut them. No, I'm kidding.
I was waiting to see how you were going to answer that one.
sometimes that happens, but I think what I would suggest is that you continue to support them, and if it's a will issue, right? I'm in favor of having really honest face-to-face discussions, letting them know that, look, like, your success as a leader also is dependent on their success. So it's like you have no reason to want to see them fail, and that you're well, I don't know if I have much more on that, but just by bringing them along that way, and then figuring out what are the reinforcers. So you might not be able to control the bonuses and the money depending on your role, but you might be able to also control the culture that they're in, the friends that they make. So you might be able to determine that. Now, on the flip side, after you've given many opportunities for failure or success and the person just isn't acting, the moment that starts to impact the learners and the other employees, you'll have to document that from a employment law standpoint. You're really going to want to document that, and what your suggestions were, because what often happens is that, honestly, when someone isn't performing and they don't want to acknowledge that, they often just want to point the finger at you as the supervisor, because that's the easy way out, instead of instead of this, like I could change, it's this, you know, and I think that you want to consider those factors.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, unfortunately, that is time for us tonight. Thank you, Brett and Isaac, for presenting on this much needed topic and very interesting and engaging. And thank you everyone who did attend. If you guys had questions that were not answered, we'll be sending those over for their responses. We'll also be posting some of their responses to some questions on our social medias. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, so you can see us there and their responses there. But if you guys need any extra assistance with CEUs, I am happy to stay on for a few minutes. Isaac and Brett, thank you so much. You do not have to stay on for the CEU questions, but I appreciate all your time tonight.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.